Hello and welcome back to another exciting edition of Tech Connect, and in this video we will be looking at the ReBokeh app. Now this app has been designed to assist people with low vision to read just by using their cell phone. But how does it measure up to the built-in iPhone Magnifier app? Well, you're gonna have to keep on watching the video to find out. So let's dive in and take a look. Okay, so let's check out the features of the ReBokeh app. I have already downloaded it, but obviously you would need to go into the App Store to download it for yourself. It is not available on Android at the moment, but they are developing for Android. But yes, at the moment, just the iPhone. This is spelled, by the way, ReBokeh, so it's a bit of a strange one. Once we have the app, we can go ahead and open it. And we will be presented with the view from the camera on the back of the phone, and then there are a number of icons that can be found on the side of the screen. So let's take a look at those different icons and what they are able to do. We will start off with the icon at the top left. That is the ReBokeh logo, and if we press that, it's going to take us through into the settings where we can do a few different things, include upgrading to a paid version. This is just the free version. We also can change the user interface between a light and a dark mode, change the size of the buttons that are on the screen, and we can turn on and off video stabilization. Now, one interesting thing that we have in here is analytics preferences. And if we go there, we can see that sending analytics data is turned on by default. I'm not really a big fan of that. I find it is quite intrusive. So if it was me personally, I would go in there and disable the sending of analytics data, because I don't think there's any reason why anybody needs to know what I am doing. So we'll go ahead and close out of the settings. The next button down on the left is the camera switching button. If I hit that, it's going to switch in between the back camera of the phone and the front camera of the phone, and so we can use whichever we want for our magnification purposes. For example, if we are using the front camera, we could use that maybe to take a look at ourselves and make sure that we've applied makeup properly or have shaved properly or whatever it might be. And if we're using the back camera, obviously that's more going to be for reading and seeing things in the distance and that type of thing. The next button down, we have a half black and half white teardrop shaped thing. And this will allow us to invert the colors. So this will just be a straight invert, turning white to black and black to white. Let's take a look at that with our newspaper here. I'm going to go ahead and hit the use button. And now our newspaper has gone from black text on a white background to white text on a black background. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple feature, but definitely very effective, particularly for people with things like glaucoma, where white on black tends to work a lot better. Let's go ahead and uninvert it. I will remove the invert, and now we are back to our regular color scheme. Underneath that, we have a color wheel, so a multicolored wheel icon. And there are two sliders that will open when we press on this. Now, the first slider to the left is for changing between the different color modes. So these are not inverted colors. These are actually all sorts of different colors of the rainbow. As I slide my slider up, we will go between the different colors in a continuous kind of method. So we kind of slide from one color to another. Pretty neat the way that that has been applied. And we have reds and oranges and yellows and greens and blues and purples and all sorts of different colors to choose from. So you can really kind of get the color that works best for you to increase the contrast of whatever it is that you're trying to read. Now, the slider just to the right will allow us to choose how bright or dim that color is. And so at the bottom, that slider will give us the brightest color saturation. But as we move that slider up, then it will start to reduce the saturation of that color until if we have that slider all the way at the top, then that will actually just take us through back to the regular color. So we've kind of desaturated the special color so much that it's no longer even there. So again, that's pretty nice. We can really get things customized to exactly how we need them to give us the best contrast for what we are trying to read. Now, at the moment, I had applied this green color, but I've actually decided that I don't want this green color anymore. And I can really quickly just return to regular settings by pressing in an icon on the bottom right of the screen. It's a backwards facing arrow. And so if I go ahead and tap on that, it's going to reset all of my settings. So you can really quickly just get back to regular color. This is actually a pretty nice feature because, for example, when we're looking at pictures, then we generally want those to be in their regular color rather than in any kind of funky color schemes. And so if we are in a high contrast color mode and we're reading text, Let's say we'll go ahead and put on a bright green here. Let's say that we're reading text, but then we want to move over and look at a picture. It's nice to be able to just tap a button and we will revert back to our regular colors. I should mention at this point that those buttons on the screen, you can make those disappear just by tapping in the middle of the screen. So obviously when you're trying to read using the app here, you don't really want those buttons covering up what it is that you're trying to read. And so just a simple tap of the screen will bring up those buttons and will also make them disappear. Moving back over to the left, we have the next icon down, which looks kind of like a camera shutter kind of button. And this is actually for our exposure. And so we can go ahead and slide that up to increase the exposure and down to decrease the exposure. This is kind of almost like a brightness in a way. And so, for example, here with the newspaper, if I have no exposure applied, then the newspaper is kind of gray because that's its normal color, right? We have the gray background with the text, the black text, but that's not the greatest contrast. If I actually adjust my exposure slider here upwards, then I can actually make it look more like black text on a white background, which again can increase the contrast and make it easier to read. Let's go ahead and disable that for the moment, and we'll look at the next feature down. And that is going to be a circle with half black and half white. And this is going to be for our contrast. So again, we can adjust the contrast to make those blacks kind of, thicker and darker and just give us better contrast. And of course, we can apply multiple things at the same time. So if we want the contrast up and then we also want the exposure level up, for example, we can do all of those things at the same time. So we can have multiple different adjustments running in tandem to give us the best possible image. For the moment, I'm going to go ahead and disable all of my settings by using that backward facing arrow. And we'll move over to some of the other options on the right side. Starting from the top right, we have our flash. We can go ahead and not only enable the flash, but choose the level of brightness as well using a slider. And this is a pretty neat feature because in the built-in Magnifier app, we do not have the ability to adjust the intensity of the flash like that. And so that is one of the unique points of this particular app. I'll go ahead and turn off the flash again. The final buttons on the right side, we have a pause button. That's going to snap a picture. So if we do need to freeze the image just to keep it a little bit more stable while we are reading something, we can easily just hit that. And then it turns into a play button. If I hit the play button, we're going to go back to the live image again. And finally, down on the bottom right, we have a folder icon, and this is for saving presets. So we may have a particular preset that we want to use when reading a newspaper, or when reading a menu, or when reading a price label, or whatever it might be. And so we can save those presets. We will tap on the folder in the bottom right. It will bring up a little window. We can hit a plus button, and then we can type in a name for our preset and also give it a color. And it will save whatever settings we have applied at the time that we create this preset. And then obviously we can just go ahead and recall our preset by pressing on that folder icon and tapping on the name of the preset. And that will go ahead and bring up all of those adjustments that we want for reading that particular item. Now, at this point in the video, you might be asking yourself, that's all very well and good, but how does that differ to the Magnifier app that is already built into my iPhone? I don't even have to download it. And well, the answer is that it doesn't really differ too much from the Magnifier app. So let's take a quick look at the Magnifier app for those who are not familiar. And I believe we already did a video on this. You should be able to find somewhere up on the right-hand side there on a card. But we'll do a quick review here. I'll go ahead and open up the Magnifier app. It's just called Magnifier. If you're having trouble finding it, you can also ask Siri to open your magnifier too. And with the Magnifier app, we can either do a pinch zoom to zoom in like we did with the ReBokeh app, or we can use a slider here. And so I'll go ahead and use the slider to zoom in. Oh, what's this in front of me here? What does this say? It says like, subscribe, and comment. No way. Well, you should definitely do what this piece of paper says, because I mean, why would you not? That's our magnification there. Let me slide that out of the way, and we will take a look at a flyer with this. And so we're obviously using exactly the same camera. It's the camera built into the back of the phone. So there's really not a lot of difference, in terms of the image quality. If I go ahead and pull up from above the magnification slider, it will open up some additional controls of the magnifier, and we have the same types of things that we saw with ReBokeh. We have a brightness control that we can slide up and down to adjust the screen brightness. We have a contrast control that we can use to adjust the contrast. We have a control for moving between various different color modes, and you can do color modes and then you can invert those color modes to get to the opposite of them. There's a number of colors to choose from, and we also are able to turn on the flashlight. Now, we cannot adjust the intensity of the flashlight, so that is one thing that the ReBokeh app has, which this Magnifier app does not. So that's something to bear in mind. We can actually also save presets just like we can with the ReBokeh app. So we can go ahead and save a new activity, give it a name, and just like with the ReBokeh app, then we can go ahead and recall those activities, so we can set up specific settings in terms of color and contrast and brightness for specific activities. So all in all, a very, very similar experience, and it's already built into the iPhone. This does make it a little difficult to see what benefits ReBokeh is really bringing to the table when it comes to magnification on your phone. I think it comes down to the user interface, whichever you prefer using. So here we are in the Vision Forward lobby. We are going to try the distance capabilities of ReBokeh and the Magnifier app. What are we going to look at? Well, we're going to look at this thing over here, hanging around with my friends. Let's zoom in on it and see what it looks like. First of all, the ReBokeh app, we will open it up. We will do our pinch zoom to zoom in there. And we're pretty zoomed in at this point, and now we're going to start moving the camera. Now, you may notice as you are moving the camera that it feels a little bit strange, and that's because we do have some image stabilization going on here, and so that helps to give us a smoother experience as we pan. But this one feels a little bit odd to me. It feels a little bit laggy. That could just be me though, so I'm not going to dock any points for that. Obviously, in the distance, we can use all of those same color filters and things like that we could use previously. And what we can also do, which could be handy, is we can snap a picture here, and so we'll go ahead and hit the pause button, and that means that now we have a nice stable picture that we can look at. We don't have to try and hold the phone steady as we are looking at things in the distance. Once we've finished, we'll go ahead and hit the play button, and now we're back to the live image. So that works nice and well. Obviously, we can rotate the phone as well and get a kind of wider image, and that's probably going to be the best way to do this, I would have thought, whether you're reading up close or in the distance, because you are then going to fit more on the screen lengthways, which is kind of what you want, really. Let's check out the Magnifier app now. Open up the magnifier, and again, we are going to look at this hanging around. We will zoom in using our pinch zoom, and first of all, let's check out the stabilization side of things. So this one, I would say, has less pronounced stabilization, or maybe it doesn't have any at all. It's hard to say, but the image does bounce around a little bit more. And so that is one thing to bear in mind. Depending on how steady your hands are, you might find that this doesn't work as well as the ReBokeh app for things in the distance. If we go ahead and drag up our control panel, I'll turn sideways and we can snap a picture here as well using the circular icon. And now we have our image on the screen, and we can obviously zoom in on the image and pan around the image, which we could also do in the ReBokeh app too. And that means that we don't have to try and hold the phone steady. So very nice. Once we finish, we will go ahead and hit the X, and now we are back to our regular view again. So a very similar experience between the two apps again, as you would imagine, because they are both using the same piece of technology with the same camera. However, ReBokeh does have that little bit of image stabilization, which does seem to help a little bit. One of the difficulties of reading using your phone is always going to be the problem of trying to hold the phone steady as you are reading. Now, this might not be such a big issue for smaller amounts of reading, but if you want to do any significant amounts of reading, it really does become a bit of a pain. Although ReBokeh does have some image stabilization built in, it still is going to be very much dependent on how well you can hold your hands and arms steady as you're trying to read. So here we are, we're reading a flyer, and I'm just scanning across across a sentence here, and I am able to keep my hands pretty steady, but it is still bouncing around quite a lot. And my arms are getting a little tired just trying to hold the phone steady as I read here. So it's not always the best solution trying to read with your phone. Now, the nice thing about the phone is you always have it with you, and it's very portable. So there are definitely some benefits to using your phone. But if you do find yourself struggling using a phone for some of these reading tasks, there are dedicated devices which generally are going to do a much better job. They are electronic magnifiers, or CCTVs, and here I have one which is a handheld unit, and with this I can just place it on top of my reading materials rather than having to hold it. And as I'm reading, then I will slide the magnifier left and right. And we have all of those same types of features in terms of changing the magnification, changing the color scheme, changing the screen brightness, and all of those different things. These dedicated devices, although it is an additional purchase, they tend to do a much better job when it comes to just reading with comfort and ease. And so it's definitely worth bearing in mind that if you are struggling using your phone for these tasks, that there are these alternate solutions. This particular model even has a handle that can be folded out, and when we fold out the handle, now we can use it more like a regular magnifying glass and kind of just hold it up against our reading materials. But the important thing to note is that we do not have to do that. We can fold out the stand and just rest it on top of our reading materials, therefore allowing us to be hands-free. So that was the ReBokeh app, and as we saw, it doesn't really offer anything different to the Magnifier app that's already built into your iPhone. So I will say it's a little bit of a difficult recommend. However, it is free, so if you do prefer the interface of the ReBokeh app compared to the built-in Magnifier app, then maybe it's worth a download and you could try it out for yourself. But all in all, I would say not a necessity. And if you would like to get in touch with us, then there are a couple of different ways. You can email us, techconnect@vision-forward.org. You could go onto our website, vision-forward.org, and we do have a learning management system. Now, what's that for? Well, if you need to get ACV REP credits, or if you would just like to see some in-depth webinars about various different accessibility topics, then you can go to our learning management system. We have a number of things there, including our Tech Connect live show, and we also have a number of webinars that you can check out for free. So why not go there today? It is techconnect.vision-forward.org. Go check it out. That's it for now.